He didn't really come from a sporting background. He came from North Salem, which was 6 or 8 miles out of the village. So I wouldn't think that he would see much sport until he actually moved out into the village. With no opportunity to play, I wouldn't think, until he was 17, 18, or 19, or to do any involvement that way.
He liked the ball, and he liked his community, I guess. He wanted to see a place for the kids to play and older people to play too. And when they started, remodeling and rebuilding that ball field, he was the main guy as far as, organizing and building and making sure the light poles got there and building the fence and getting it in right and the backstop and dugouts and the canteen and, all that. So he oversaw all that.
Well, he'd time his day so that if he started at 4 in the morning, he'd be finished his day by lunchtime so that he could go to the ball field and work on the ball field the rest of the day up until game time.
Carl was always at the ball field, and that's the one thing I remember distinctly. I worked in the area, so I drove by a lot, and always Carl was at the field, always fixing something, getting it ready for the evening games, whatever.
With fastball and the way that we came through it, he was there from start to finish with that, intermediate, all levels, right through to A, which we won some divisional titles there, and then Senior B, we won there, and Senior A, we were lucky to win there. And it was Carl. Carl was there at all those levels as coach, all the way through.
Well, I remember one winter, the Bill Corporal and their families went to Florida, and while he was there, he saw somebody using a batting machine, which we hadn't seen any, at least in Shubby up to that point.
He's seen Major League Baseball using them and got a bunch of information and ordered one, and it arrived, and he built a batting cage in the yard and stuff, and the teams would come out and use it, and anybody who wants to stop in would use it. And of course, it was in my backyard, so we used it all the time, me and all my friends or whoever. But no, that lasted for quite a few years, so it was pretty neat.
And Carl was looking for a way for us to make our mark, and we were young and inexperienced, and he brought the batting machine, and I remember that we would spend hours on that, and it did make a difference.
The vision, that kind of speaks to the vision that he had, because he was such a student of the game. He knew that there was things that he could do, or that he could get us to do, that would make us better, and he was always looking for that. Carl was solid in his approach to what we were trying to do, and he was there for so long, for so many days, every year. Everybody would look to him for that leadership, and through that he gained the trust and respect of everybody that was on the front lines playing for him directly, but people that were in the stands, the fans, the business leaders that would come out to contribute to what Carl was doing. He was very instrumental in developing that passion within the community that without him it would never have happened the way that it did.
They had a really nice ball field in Shubby, and I think it was sort of led by Carl, but there was a lot of other people, Bill Corporal and Bill Dingle and Al Langell and Stuart Barr and Ross Barr, like all these, everybody in the community helped out. But it was Carl's vision, I think, that made it that way, and got the people keen to do it.
There is actually a picture of Bill Purple and Carl Anthony and Stuart Barr leaning on the fence, and I start to think about people that were involved around Carl. He was the pivot, but there was other people like Junior Sanford, Garnet Hall, and different people like that. It was a huge community effort, but Carl was the guy that made the wheels spin. I can remember in the July 1st weekend, for instance, we used to always have a tournament, and people came from everywhere. There was teams came from all over the province, as well as New Brunswick, and everyone loved to come to Shubenacadie. The field there was one of the best in the province, and everyone loved it, and it was because Carl Anthony made it so.
I think that if it hadn't been for Carl and his group, I can tell you that would never have happened. Those tournaments were so special to the whole village. They were talked about all winter, whether you won or whether you lost. But it was a great weekend, very special.
Carl, he had approached me about coaching the senior team in Shubby, and it was time for me to move on from the Brookfield side of things. And I was kind of looking forward to continue playing, but the coaching side of it was intriguing also. So, but Carl was the backer behind it all. Like he approached me about it, and I thought it was a great idea, and it just snowballed from there.
For the whole program to come together with a provincial championship in 1985, I know that Carl was very proud of what he had done to put the eyes on softball in Shubenacadie, and you know, to have some of our local guys play on that team was ultimately a very great accomplishment for. I know he was very proud of that.
He was no longer on the bench then, but he was quietly sitting in the stands. I think very happy with how things were playing out, you know, because it was a seed that he'd sown early, and it had, you know, grown to that point. And I think he was just as happy to be in the bleachers watching the game, you know.
He brought everybody along to compete at those different levels, whether it was a batting cage set up in his own yard, you know, a pitch machine that I'm sure he bought with his own money, and all the things that he did for us and the nucleus that we had for that in Shubenacadie. But he also reached out beyond Shubenacadie to the corridor and brought key players in from there, you know, that could contribute to that vision that he had of the corridor and Shubenacadie being focal to take it to the highest level that was available to us at the time. And he succeeded. He did all that.
He didn't really express himself a lot, but I know he was very happy and very proud, like we all were, especially to beat the Brookfield Elks and to go to the Nationals. It's like a fairy tale.
Darts was a big part of his sporting life too. At one time, it was a big thing in East Hants. It was probably 15 or 16 teams playing out of every village. Every legion had 2 or 3 teams.
There was just so many trophies when it first started. Later on, as they started giving out money, but there was like more trophies kicking around our house. You didn't know what they were for. Like they just had some kind of dart championship on them, and you know, at one time, he was considered, you know, the top player in the Maritimes for sure.
Carl was probably, you know, him and Tommy Watson and some other guys were probably some of the best players in the province, obviously, and they would go away and represent the Shubenacadie Legion of themselves in provincial tournaments and Canadian tournaments. Carl won at most levels that he competed at. He was a deadly shot.
Well, years ago there was a touring pro from England that come around and put on exhibitions, and he was putting one on, and I believe it was in Elmsdale, and I don't know if there was 10 or 20 or 25 guys that got a chance to play him from around the local area, and Dad was the only one to beat him. Or his dad said that I was the only guy he let win.
We had a unique group of people that spent time together at Carl's house and a few others that probably a lot of teams never had, and that was because of Carl and Harriet and what they fostered for the sport.
My mother was a big part of this too. She played a little bit of ball in Shibby, and she understood what was going on, and she was just quite happy to keep her kids active and busy, and was very supportive of the whole thing, and never misses a game if she can.
Carl Anthony built a foundation in Shubenacadie area that the Anthonys carried quite well, and of course with Larry and Terry and the work that they've done in the communities, not only in sports but in everything else, and the legacy that will leave forever. But you know, and then Terry's children and the way that they've come up through the sports programs and actually teaching and growing the sport and doing a tremendous job. I think that foundation was put there by their dad, and I'm sure he's very, very proud.
He put a lot of time and effort in, and I think he's, you know, very deserving. And you know, for a period of time, that was the main thing in Shubenacadie was, well, you know, was ball. There's lots of kids that played for a little bit, and there's lots of kids that played a little bit more, but then there's some that have taken it to the next level. Gerald Musler probably wouldn't have been playing the softball he played if there wasn't a facility and teams already in place for him to participate with.
Carl, congratulations on the induction in 2019. It's probably 10 years too late, but so happy that you're here. You're so deserving. And thank you very much for everything that you did for me in my game, and the ability that you brought out in myself and all of us to take softball and fastball to the level that we did in the community and the area as a whole. Thanks.
Well, Carl, I'd just like to say congratulations for your entrance into the Hall of Fame. I can't think of anyone that deserves it more, and the effect that you've had on my life, not only in sports but in every other aspect, and along with so many, 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 many more people in Shubenacadie. Congratulations to you.
2019 East Hants Sport Hall of Fame inductee, Carl Anthony.